There's a bottle in most kitchens that promises to kill 99% of germs, and most folks feel safer the second they reach for it. But 99% isn't the number you want, not everywhere, and certainly not down inside you. Because down in your gut lives a whole town, trillions of tiny tenants that help you draw the good out of every meal. They've kept house with our kind since before there were people to keep house, and most of us have quietly let that town empty out. A lifetime of processed, packaged, overcleaned eating does it. Slow, without a single symptom to warn you. A few years back, a team at Stanford set out to fill that town back up. Healthy folks. 10 weeks, one plain change to their plates, more life inside them, and a broad, measured drop in the quiet swelling that sits underneath so much of what goes wrong as we age. This isn't just old kitchen wisdom. It's measured. So today, 15 of them. Foods older than refrigeration, older than pharmacies. Some sitting in your fridge this very minute. Some you're buying dead without knowing. Wait until number 6. It holds more of a rare bone and artery vitamin than almost anything on a plate. Nothing here replaces your doctor. I'll say it once and mean it. I'm a retired nurse, not a prescriber. Take notes if you like, or just sit with me a while. Let's start with the one that's likely 3 feet from where you're standing. Number 1, cabbage. That's the whole of it. Plain cabbage, chopped fine, salted, and left alone in a jar to do something quietly remarkable. My grandmother kept a crock of it down in the root cellar. I can still smell that cellar if I close my eyes. Cool, earthy, a little sharp. That smell was health, though none of us called it that. Here's the thing most folks miss entirely. The sauerkraut in the shiny can, sitting warm on the middle shelf, that's been cooked to death. Pasteurized, they call it. The good little workers that made it are long gone, boiled out before it ever reached the store. What you want is the cold stuff, the kind that fizzes a bit when you open the lid and has to live in the fridge, because that jar is alive. And a dead jar can't do a living jar's work. Think of that living jar like a crew of tiny gardeners you're about to hire. When cabbage ferments, plain lactic acid bacteria, the very same family that sours milk into buttermilk, turn tough raw cabbage into something soft and sour that your gut greets like an old neighbor. And as they feed, they give off byproducts that nourish the gut wall itself, the living layer that decides what gets in and what doesn't. It's like pouring compost tea onto a tired garden bed. The soil wakes up. The bed does better. You get the fiber the cabbage always had. You get a good hit of vitamin C. Captain Cook's sailors hauled barrels of this across whole oceans to keep from falling ill on the long voyages, back before a soul knew what a vitamin even was. And you get a fresh dose of living cultures in every single forkful, cheap as dirt and twice as useful. This was exactly the sort of food in that Stanford trial that nudged the inner town toward more variety. Centuries of watching, now with the numbers to match. Making it yourself is about as simple as cooking gets, and it barely earns the word recipe. Shred a cabbage. Weigh it. Add roughly 2% of that weight in plain salt. That's about a tablespoon for a small head. Then squeeze it with clean hands till it weeps its own brine. 5-10 minutes of good, honest work. Pack it down tight in a jar so the liquid rises up and covers every shred. Cover it loose so it can breathe, and let it sit on the counter, out of the sun, a week or 2. When it smells pleasantly sour and tastes bright, it's done. A blessing from the soil and near enough to free. One caution, and I give it kindly. It's salty by its very nature, so if you're minding your blood pressure, go gentle and talk it over with your doctor first. And don't you dare cook the living kind. Heat undoes all that patient work in a minute flat. Stir it in cold at the very end, spooned over the plate. A forkful alongside supper is a fine place to begin. Small, steady. Every day beats a heap once in a while. Number 2 takes that same humble idea and sets it alight. Kimchi. Cabbage again, but this time dressed up bold, garlic, ginger, a good dose of red pepper flakes, then left to sour into something with real character. I'll be honest with you. The first time I opened a proper jar, I wasn't sure whether to eat it or evict it. Now I'm never without it. Funny how the nose learns, and each of those add-ins earns its keep. The garlic and ginger bring their own warming, protective qualities. The pepper brings the compound that gives chilies their heat, which research has poked at for years. But the real magic is the souring itself. As kimchi ferments, it feeds a particular good bacterium, one the researchers get downright excited about, that tends the slippery mucus blanket lining your gut. Picture that gut lining like a fine screen door in summer. You want it letting the breeze pass through, the good from your food, while keeping the flies out. When the mesh gets torn and loose, all manner of things slip through that shouldn't, and the body frets over it. That good bug helps keep the screen snug and mended. That's the quiet work going on with every spicy forkful. That's not me spinning old country tales either. In a controlled trial, folks carrying extra weight who ate fermented kimchi every day saw real measured changes: waistline, blood sugar, the lot, more so than those eating it fresh and unfermented. Larger studies across whole populations point the same way, tying a sensible daily helping to trimmer waistlines. The souring is what does the heavy lifting, not the fresh salad version. The patient, aged, living one. You don't need a whole project to enjoy it. A couple forkfuls tucked beside rice, folded into scrambled eggs, or stirred into a plain bowl of soup does the job handsomely. I add mine after the heat's off, same as the sauerkraut, so those good workers keep their jobs. And if you're brave enough to make your own, it's the kraut method with the spices mixed in. Cabbage, salt, and your paste of garlic, ginger, and pepper, packed under the brine for a few days. Now, a gentle word for the tender-stomached. It's spicy, and it's living, and both of those can stir up folks prone to heartburn or a touchy gut. So start with a single spoonful, not a bowlful. Your insides, bless them, like to be introduced to new company slowly, the way you'd ease a nervous guest into a room. Give it a week or two and most folks settle right in. Number 3 is one I reach for near every single morning: kefir. It's fermented milk, buttermilk's wilder. Braver cousin. Where a cup of yogurt keeps a handful of cultures, kefir keeps a whole boisterous household of them. Bacteria and beneficial yeasts both. Dozens of different kinds under one roof, all raised on those funny little grains that look for all the world like tiny cauliflower florets. Here's a real kindness a lot of people never learn. If a glass of milk tends to trouble you, that heavy, bloated, gurgling feeling an hour later, kefir may sit far easier on you. The little workers eat up most of the milk sugar during the fermenting, doing a good share of the digesting before the glass ever reaches your lips. They also leave behind a little extra of some B vitamins as they go. Riboflavin, B12, small amounts, but honestly earned. You get more nourishment out and less discomfort in. And that's not a hunch of mine. In a proper study of adults who couldn't handle milk sugar well, kefir eased their symptoms and helped them break that sugar down far better than plain milk ever did. Old drink, modern proof, the two lining up the way they so often do, once somebody bothers to check. You can buy it plain, and plain is the word to hunt for on that lid, since the flavored tubs are so often more sugar than culture. Dessert wearing a health costume. Or, and this is the thrifty way, you keep a spoonful of your own grains and let them make you a fresh jar every day, near endlessly, for the plain price of the milk. Cover the grains in milk, leave them on the counter a day, strain them out, and start again. They're generous little things. Feed them milk, they hand you back more of themselves. I take mine tart with a handful of berries stirred through, and I call it breakfast. Thick, sour, filling, keeps me content clear through to noon. The way the Creator designed that quiet partnership between plain milk and unseen microbe, turning one humble thing into another that's better still. Well, I never do quite stop marveling at it. Number 4 is the one nearly everyone already owns, and nearly everyone underuses: live culture yogurt. Plain, unsweetened, with the words "live and active cultures" printed right there on the lid. That one little line matters far more than the price on the sticker. The trouble is, most yogurt on the shelf these days is really pudding in disguise. Fruit on the bottom, syrup swirled through, and the good handful of living workers, all but drowned out by the sugar riding along with them. What you want is the plain kind, thick, a touch sour, a little tang that puckers, that you sweeten your own self with a few berries or a thread of honey if you please. Then you're in charge of the sugar, not the factory. The cultures in real yogurt are your steady, reliable hands, 2 hardy strains that have soured milk for humankind for thousands of years. They help settle digestion. And for a great many folks, they take the edge off milk sugar the same gentle way kefir does. Think of them as a well-mannered work crew, not as wild or as varied as kefir's rowdy household, but dependable to a fault, and about the easiest good bacteria a beginner can welcome in the door. If you want more protein in every spoon, and past a certain age, most of us do, whether we know it or not, reach for the strained kind, the thick Greek style. Straining pours off the watery part and concentrates the good. And if you fancy a project, you can culture your own from a single spoonful of an old batch stirred into warm milk and kept cozy overnight. But there's no shame at all in buying it. A good plain tub, eaten most mornings, is one of the very simplest good habits I know. Cheap, familiar, doing quiet good every day. Number 5 comes to us from across the ocean, and it has earned its keep for a good many centuries. Miso, a thick paste of fermented soybeans, aged slow with the help of a friendly mold called koji until it turns deep, dark, and savory. A single spoonful stirred into warm water makes a broth that tastes somehow like comfort itself. That koji is the clever part. It's rice or barley that's been coaxed to grow a helpful mold, and when you fold it in with the soybeans and salt and let time do its work, it slowly takes the tough, hard-to-digest bean apart into softer, friendlier pieces your body handles with hardly any effort. Months of patience, sometimes years, doing the chewing for you before you ever lift the bowl. What's left behind is living cultures and a set of gentle plant compounds that a long history of eating links with steadier hearts and stronger bones. The folks who've had a bowl of it most days for generations tend to grow old remarkably well. There's a white, sweet, mild sort of miso for a light touch and a darker red, stronger sort for deep flavor. Start with the mild if it's new to you. Here's the one rule I'll press firmly upon you. Don't boil it. If you drop miso into a roaring pot, you scald the very life out of it. Warm your water or broth, take the pot off the heat, then stir the miso in at the end till it dissolves cloudy and fragrant. Same principle as the kraut, and it's not only for soup. A little whisked into a salad dressing or brushed on vegetables before roasting brings that deep, savory note to near anything. It is salty, mind you. A little goes a long, long way, and if your doctor's got you watching your sodium, keep that spoon on the small side. But as a warm cup on a damp gray morning, and out here in Oregon, most mornings start out damp and gray, there's precious little I'd trade for it. Number 6 is the one I hinted at way back at the start. Natto. Fermented whole soybeans, sticky, stringy, and strong-smelling, and I'll grant you straight off that it's an acquired friendship. But dearie, what this humble bean carries is worth holding your nose for. Natto is about the richest food source there is of one particular form of vitamin K2, the long-lasting kind that stays working in your body for days off a single serving. And that vitamin does a job I only wish more people understood. Picture the calcium in your body as traffic on a road. You want it parked in your bones, where it belongs and does good. You want it kept out of the walls of your arteries, where it stiffens and causes real trouble. K2 is the traffic cop standing at the corner, waving that calcium into the right lane. And that's not a claim I've spun out of thin air. When people eat natto, the amount of that vitamin circulating in their blood climbs right up, and so do the signs of calcium being steered properly into bone. A large, long-running heart study also tied a higher intake of this K2 to better outcomes over the years. The good bacterium that makes natto is a tough one. Besides, it survives the harsh trip through the stomach and turns up lively on the far side, ready to help. Natto also carries a natural compound the fermenting bacteria leave behind, nattokinase, which early laboratory work and a handful of small human studies suggest may support healthy blood flow. The human trials are still limited, so I'll not dress it up as settled science. And this, right here, is exactly where I put my old nurse's cap back on for a moment, so listen close. If you take a blood thinner, warfarin most of all, you must not add natto to your table without talking to your doctor first. The vitamin K in it can pull against that very medicine. This is not a maybe, and it's not me being overcautious. Please, ask first. For everyone else, the tradition is a small portion a few times a week, usually stirred hard till it turns good and stringy, then served over rice with a little mustard and soy to gentle the character of it. It'll never win a beauty contest, I'll give you that, but for bones and arteries both, at the same time, off one cheap and stubborn little bean, well, there's simply nothing else on this list that pulls that double duty. Number 7 is natto's far gentler relation, and a much easier one to fall for. Tempeh, whole soybeans knit together by a friendly mold into a firm, nutty cake you can slice like a piece of meat and cook right in the pan. No worries here about scalding it alive, because this one you eat for the made-over bean itself, not for delicate live cultures. The fermenting binds those beans into a solid cake, and, far more to the point, pre-softens them. Now, raw soybeans hold on to a stubborn substance that grabs hold of minerals like iron and zinc and hides them away where your body can't reach them. It's the plant's own little lockbox. The fermenting picks that lock, so the good in the bean actually makes it inside you and gets put to use, instead of passing straight on through untouched. And it's a proper, complete protein, the whole set of building blocks your body cannot make on its own, all present in one modest slice, plus a good bit of fiber besides. For folks eating less meat as the years roll on, whether by choice or by the sting of the price at the butcher's counter, that matters more than most realize. Muscle wants feeding to keep from wasting away, and it doesn't much care whether its bricks came from an animal or a bean, so long as the set is complete. I like mine, sliced thin, steamed a few minutes first if it's dense, then browned in a little oil till the edges go crisp and golden, and tucked into whatever supper's happening that evening. It drinks up a marinade like a dry sponge drinks water. Give it soy, garlic, a splash of vinegar, and half an hour to sit. Firm, filling, forgiving to cook. A grand one to start with if the stronger, stranger ferments have scared you off so far. Number 8, you sip instead of chew. Kombucha, sweet tea, fermented by a curious, rubbery, pancake-looking disc the makers fondly call a mother, until most of that sugar's been eaten up and what's left is tart, fizzy, and faintly of vinegar. Odd-looking thing, that mother, floating there. I've named a few of mine over the years. Don't tell anyone. That mother is really a whole partnership of bacteria and yeast living together as a mat, and as they feast on the sweet tea, they turn most of the sugar into gentle, tart acids, the same sort of acid that gives vinegar its bite. What stays behind is the protective plant compounds from the tea leaves themselves, the very ones green tea's long been prized for, now carried in a lively, bubbling drink with a splash of living cultures on top. A good word of plain sense here, though. Store-bought bottles can still carry more sugar than you'd ever guess, so read that label like you mean it. It's tart enough to be hard on tooth enamel over time, so I sip mine with a meal rather than nursing a bottle all afternoon long. And if you brew your own, keep every jar and spoon scrupulously clean, and don't let a batch run too long. Sour is good, but there is such a thing as gone too far, and clean is not optional with a home ferment. Taken with a little sense, it's a fine swap for the sugary sodas so many of us grew up guzzling. A small glass, cold, poured over ice with lunch, bubbles and a bit of bright flavor without the guilt of the pop can, and a little unseen help riding along besides. Number 9 might just surprise you because it's bread, and bread's had a rough time of it lately, hasn't it? But real sourdough is a wholly different animal from the sliced, plastic-bagged loaf that squishes to nothing in your fist. This one's raised not with a packet of fast factory yeast, but with a living starter, wild and bubbling, that ferments the dough slow and sour over long hours, sometimes a whole day and night. That long, patient rise is where all the good happens. The wild cultures, a friendly tangle of yeasts and lactic acid bacteria, partly take the grain apart before you ever eat a bite. Call it a bread that predigests itself at the counter. They soften phytic acid, the very same mineral-hiding substance that locks up iron and zinc in whole grains, and that we saw doing the same job back in the soybeans, so the minerals tucked away in the flour become far easier for your body to lay claim to. And there's a gentler effect on the way your body handles the whole meal. In a controlled study, real sourdough changed how quickly the stomach passed the food along compared with ordinary white bread, a slower, steadier handoff down the line, which tends to sit easier on your sugar management across the day. Same grain, worked differently, behaving itself far better for the effort. Now hear me plain, because I'll not have anyone twisting my words. Sourdough is not gluten-free, and it is not a license to eat a whole loaf at a sitting. If you've a true medical reason to steer clear of wheat, this is not your door, and no amount of fermenting changes that. But for most everyday folks, a slice or two of a proper long-fermented loaf is a far kinder bread than the fluffy fast stuff. To spot the real thing, check the ingredients: flour, water, salt, and starter, and precious little else. Toasted, with a scrape of good butter. Simple, honest, good. Number 10 is a bit of a heartbreaker, because so many good people think they're eating it, and they simply aren't. Real, lacto-fermented pickles. Cucumbers turned sour by nothing more than salt, water, and thyme. The same living process as our sauerkraut way back at number 1, not the vinegar kind. And that one distinction, dearie, is the whole ballgame. Here's how to tell the two apart. And it's dead simple once somebody shows you. The pickles up on the warm shelf, swimming in clear, bright vinegar. Those are tangy but dead, cooked, sealed, shelf-stable, and empty of any living culture. The good ones sit down in the cold case, resting in a cloudy salt brine, and they're often marked plainly as naturally fermented. One is a mere condiment, the other is medicine you can crunch. The living kind hands you what all these salt ferments hand you, a good mouthful of the lactic acid workers, plus the satisfying crunch and the tart brine. Some old-timers even sip a little of that brine straight, tart as it is, and swear by it after a big meal or a hot day's work. I'll leave that particular habit to your own taste and your own doctor. You can make them yourself with the very same method as the kraut. Cucumbers packed into a salt brine, a few days on the counter, and maybe a grape or oak leaf tossed in, which the old folks did to keep the crunch. But if you're buying, just hold fast to the one rule: cold case, cloudy brine, naturally fermented on the label. Anything warm and clear on a middle shelf, you leave it be. And as ever, salty by nature, so easy does it if you're minding your blood pressure. Number 11 is an old country tonic that most folks over here have honestly never once met: beet kvass. You ferment chopped raw beets in salted water for a few days until you've got a deep ruby red drink, earthy and a touch salty, that grandmothers all across Eastern Europe have poured out for their families for generations beyond counting. The beets bring their own quiet gifts along for the ride. There's folate, good for the blood, and there are the natural nitrates that beets are particularly rich in. Studies on beet juice and beet concentrate show these nitrates can signal your vessels to open up and let the blood move through easy, like throwing all the windows wide on a warm day. Whether the fermenting changes that much, I'll be honest, nobody's run that particular trial yet, but the beet itself earns the credit. The deep red pigment itself is one of those protective plant compounds researchers keep circling back to. The fermenting then lays the living cultures over the top and softens the whole earthy business into something your body sips up kindly. This one you take in small measures, mind. A little glass, not a tall tumbler. It's potent stuff. Earthy, salty, and acquired taste, same as a fair few on this list. To make it, you chop your beets into good-sized chunks, not grated. Grated goes off too fast and can turn boozy on you. Cover them with salted water and give it 3 to 5 days. But if you find you like it, it's a lovely, thrifty way to get your beets and your cultures in one single humble pour. Nothing wasted. That's the country way. And a gentle, slightly comical heads up. Beets can tint things a rather startling color on the way back out. Don't you let it alarm you? That's just the pigment passing through and doing no harm at all. As ever, it carries salt, so keep that pour modest if your doctor's asked you to watch it. Number 12. Most of you already own, and most of you own the wrong bottle entirely. Raw apple cider vinegar with the mother. That cloudy, cobwebby stuff drifting about at the bottom of the jar is the living part, the good part, and the filtered, crystal-clear bottles have had every bit of it stripped clean out for the sake of looking pretty. So shake the good one before you buy it. It ought to look a little murky, a little alive. That murk is the whole point. That mother is a little colony of good bacteria wrapped in a soft web they spin for themselves. The sharp tartness comes from a gentle acid the fermenting makes, and small studies suggest that a spoonful taken with a meal can take a bit of the edge off the sugar spike a starchy plate brings on, a softer landing, so to speak, rather than the sharp climb and crash. Modest mind? It's a helper at the table, not a fix for anything. And I will never once tell you otherwise. Here's exactly where my nurse's cap goes firmly back on. Never, ever drink it straight. Undiluted vinegar is downright harsh on tooth enamel and harsh on the throat going down. And I've seen the damage done by folks chasing a health trend too hard. A spoonful stirred into a full glass of water, or splashed over a plate of greens as a dressing. That is the safe way, the only way. And if you're on medicine for your blood sugar or your blood pressure, do check with your doctor before making a daily ritual of it, since it can add its weight to what those pills are already doing. Used with good sense, though, it's a thrifty little ally that lives in near every pantry in the land already. A splash in the water glass before a heavy supper, a bright dressing over a garden salad. Nothing dramatic and nothing miracle working, whatever the internet hollers. Just a small, sour nudge in a sensible direction. Number 13 might just be the most agreeable food on this entire list. Aged cheese, a good nutty Gouda, or a proper sharp aged cheddar. Cheese, when you get right down to it, is simply milk that fermented and then grew up slow. And the long-aged wheels quietly carry that very same bone and artery vitamin we met with the Natto, made right there in the wheel by the good bacteria that ripen it. So the good folks who simply cannot bring themselves to face a bowl of sticky Natto, and I understand you completely, have a far friendlier door to the same vitamin K2. Our traffic cop, remember, waving the calcium into your bones and firmly out of your artery walls. That same large heart study I mentioned earlier tied a diet richer in this K2, cheese and all, to better outcomes over the long years. And that's before we even count the calcium, and the good protein cheese has always handed us. I'll not pretend for a second it's a food to overdo, mind. It's rich, it's salty, and it carries the sort of fat your doctor may well want you keeping a careful eye on. So this is a small portion pleasure, a modest wedge, savored slow, not a whole groaning board devoured in front of the television. But as far as getting a genuinely helpful vitamin into your body in a form people actually delight in eating, there's not a great deal of competition, is there? When you're at the counter, look for the words aged, and the longer the ripening, the better, because that's precisely where this vitamin builds itself up over the months. And choose one you truly, honestly love the taste of. A food you enjoy is a food you'll actually keep eating, week in and week out, and that steadiness is half the whole battle, right there. Number 14 brings us back home to something plain and comfortable and familiar: cultured buttermilk and cultured cottage cheese. Not the thin, sour stuff you splash into a cake batter, but the true cultured kind, soured on purpose by living bacteria doing honest work. This was, as it happens, one of the very foods sitting on the table in that Stanford trial we opened the whole show with. What I dearly love about these two is what a gentle starting place they make for a nervous beginner. No strong smell to brave, no acquired taste to grit your teeth and survive. Just mild, creamy, familiar food that happens to be carrying a good load of living cultures and a fine dose of protein along with it, which matters more and more as we age and our appetites, sad to say, tend to shrink right down. In all my nursing years, the shortage I saw the very most often wasn't some rare exotic thing you'd need a specialist for. It was plain protein and the quality of it in older folks who'd simply lost their interest in sitting down to a big meal. And that shortage steals your muscle out from under you, quiet and slow, till a fall or a long illness finds you with nothing left in reserve. A bowl of cultured cottage cheese answers both troubles at one stroke: easy to eat, easy to digest, good protein, and doing kindly work for the gut on the side. Buttermilk, the true cultured kind and not the imitation, does the very same duty in a form you can pour, lovely straight in a glass, or spilled over a bowl of berries, or worked into a soft biscuit. Look for that word cultured on the carton, keep it plain and unsweetened, and there you have another simple, cheap, everyday habit ready to go. Nothing the least bit fancy about it. Just the reliable, humble sort of good that quietly adds up over years and years. Number 15 is my own little folk favorite, and I'll be plain and honest with you, this one leans far more on old tradition than on any pile of modern trials. Fermented garlic honey, peeled cloves of garlic, covered over in raw honey, and left to sit for a few weeks until the garlic mellows out sweet and the honey turns thin and golden and gently garlicky. My mother kept a jar of something near enough to it on the windowsill. Or was it my aunt who did that? Well, no matter. It's the jar that stayed with me all these years. Garlic's been leaned on for its warming, protective qualities for just about as long as there have been kitchens to hang it in. When you cut or crush a clove, it makes a sharp little compound, the very thing that stings your eyes and clears your head. And folk healers the world over have prized it. Honey, for its part, carries its own gentle, soothing, coating reputation just as ancient. Put the two together and let them ferment, and the honey draws the sharpness out of the garlic and softens it into something you can actually take by the spoon. Traditionally, folks reached for a spoonful of this at the very first scratch of a sore throat or the first sign the weather was turning against them. Now, I'll not dress it up as more than it honestly is. The strong human trials just aren't there, and I'd be lying to you if I claimed them. But the tradition behind it is old and deep and cross a good many cultures, and to my mind, that earns it a quiet place on the shelf. To make it, you simply peel your cloves, cover them fully in raw honey in a clean jar, and give the lid a little loosening each day for a week or two to let it breathe. A spoonful taken slow, so it coats the throat on the way down, is the traditional way of it. And here is the one caution I will not soften by a single word, because it is a matter of real and serious safety. Honey must never, ever be given to a baby under 1 year old. Not this jar, not any honey, not a taste of it. Ever. It can carry something a tiny new gut hasn't the defenses to handle yet. For the little ones, this jar is off limits. Full stop. No exceptions. For us grown folks, it's a comforting, old-fashioned thing to keep on hand through the colder stretches, and it is no substitute at all for seeing your doctor when a real sickness digs in and won't turn loose. But as a small, warming little ritual when the throat first tickles of an evening, it's one I confess I've never quite managed to give up. Some old comforts earn their keep, honestly. This is one of mine. Now that's the 15. 15 foods older than the pharmacy, most of them cheaper by far than a single cup of coffee, and nearly every last one already within arm's reach at your ordinary store. Not one of them asks you to overhaul your whole life or empty your wallet. They just ask you to trade the dead version for the living one and to make a little room on your plate. And do hold on to the one thread that ran clean through the whole lot of them. Heat is the undoing of the good ones. So with any ferment you're eating for its living cultures, the kraut, the kimchi, the miso, you stir it in cold and late at the very end, and you let those little workers keep their jobs. The few exceptions earn their place other ways. But when you're in doubt, keep it cool. That's the rule that carries you. And I'll say the important part just once more because it matters more than any recipe. None of this replaces your doctor, and a few of these, the natto, the vinegar, that lovely bone and artery vitamin, can pull against real medicines you may be taking. If you're on anything for your heart, your blood, or your blood sugar, you have that conversation first, before you change a thing. Good plain sense and a good doctor are the finest company any of these foods could ever hope to keep. Here's my question for you then. Over the garden fence, which of these do you already keep alive down in your fridge? And which one, be honest now, have you been buying stone dead off the warm middle shelf all this time without ever once knowing the difference? Tell me down in the comments. And if you ferment your own, share your salt ratio with the rest of us. Everybody's is a little different, and after all these years, I'm still picking up tricks from good folks like you. If a neighbor of yours could use this, someone worn thin, or just plain tired of paying a small fortune to go on feeling poorly, you send it right along their way. And do subscribe so the next walk finds you when it's ready. I put a fresh one together for you as often as these old hands are able. Thank you kindly for spending this while with me. Go gentle with yourself, feed those good little tenants of yours, and take a quiet moment to be grateful for a world that grows its own soft medicine right under our feet. Stay blessed, dearie, and I'll see you next time.